We'll be dancing in the streets, dancing at his feet, dancing in the streets of gold.
Welcome to Newscasting Ancient Times. I'm here with Mark David Smith to bring you Brit Hadashaw accounts as though they happened today.
Welcome, everybody. I trust your week has been blessed and you've been a blessing to everyone you've come in contact with.
Well, Mark, last week brought a report connected to a story we've been following for several weeks. This report concerns a traveling group of evangelists who meander through our great countryside, targeting, helping others who are less fortunate, down on their luck, crippled, homeless, and just all around in need.
Yes, we must watch our words. Out of the abundance of our hearts, Sandy. That scenario in itself would normally paint a pretty picture of the most wonderful group of traveling companions anyone could imagine.
If you've been following our related reports, you surely noticed our cynical belief that these people are motivated chiefly by base or selfish concerns. Mark and I are not generally skeptical of the motives of others. It's just that as journalists, we do have to err on the side of caution. Caution in that people placing themselves in public forums, so to speak, need an outside source to keep their actions accountable.
Sandy and I don't set ourselves up as judge and jury of any so-called news agendas. At the same time, just reporting news stories like the ones we're watching will cause Sandy and I to take caution. News stories such as the ones following this man named Yeshua and his close followers. We take notice of these diverse series of events and try to put them together in some kind of rational, reasonable, intelligible awareness for us and for you, our audience.
We do get an extremely wide range of emails and letters from you, our viewers. Some who agree with our cautionary way of reporting these events, and some who just outright condemn us for not just accepting Yeshua for who they say he is, the Messiah.
For who they say he is, of course. First off, we want to apologize if we've come across as not caring for the people who Yeshua has touched and helped in such an amazing way. It does seem somewhat obvious to Sandy and I that Yeshua and his Talmudim have an agenda of giving, and that within itself is commendable. And at this point, Sandy and I want to commend Yeshua for his unending passion for the people he and his Talmudim have encountered day after day and week after week.
Truth be told, whether he, Yeshua, is the Messiah or just another concerned, well-meaning human being who has decided to spend all of his time and his Talmudim's time to rummage through our sacred land and help people in need, he is doing a lot more than any other religious or secular group. If there are any other groups out there who are helping a fraction of the defenseless, destitute, disabled, and forlorn people, these traveling company of companions are helping. Please bring us up to date. From our point of view, we just don't see it.
That's true. I agree, Sandy. And once again, Sandy, I must confess that there are times, such as with these reports on Yeshua and his followers, that we let our opinions get in the way of reporting unbiased news. Now, how many news reporters are going to be that honest? None, basically. And if it seems that you're getting mixed vibes from us about who Yeshua is and what he's doing, we're trying to decide ourselves. For now, just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts.
I'm with you somewhat all the way, Mark. That being said, this week's Yeshua adventure makes it real hard, if not the hardest report so far, short of
Right.
praising the so-called dead man, to remain unbiased and not give our own commentary on the story at hand.
Sandy, if you and I getting more in tune with the way we view this, well, we'll have to find new partners so we can have someone to disagree with.
From this report, I read that Yeshua not only came close to a person with Zarat, but he actually touched this person. Touched a person with Zarat. I know we are supposed to keep our emotions to ourselves and open to this world we live in and all the new reports making their way to our newsroom, but I'm at a loss for words on this one here.
Don't be, Sandy. It's really only a news report. It's our job to tell people what's given to us on these papers and let the people decide for themselves. You know, some of those listening have been touched by Yeshua. Maybe not with Zarat, but with many other ailments. They have their own stories and see these new stories with a different perspective.
Well, I'm waiting for my time to witness these matters with an open mind and heart. Until then,
That's right. Until then.
until the next report. This report. Last week, we reported that Yeshua and his Talmudim spent a couple of days preaching and teaching and riling up the rabbis, the Torah teachers, the Parashim, and many others. When done, they broke camp and headed down the road. Because of his intense gleanings, many more people than had already followed his merry bunch of roamers decided to leave their family, their homes, their jobs, basically their entire lives, and follow Yeshua.
Yeah, that's right. And along the way, a man afflicted with Zarat came, kneeled down in front of Yeshua and said, "Sir, if you are willing, you can make me clean." At this point, Yeshua reached out his hand, touched the man afflicted with Zarat, and said, "I am willing, be cleansed." And according to these reports, at once the man was cleansed from his zarat. Then Yeshua said to him, "See that you tell no one, but as a testimony to the people, go and let the Cohen examine you and offer the sacrifice that Moshe commanded."
It is our job to report what we're given to report. The
Right.
words from this report is from people are from people who were on the scene and saw these happenings with their own eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully, soon enough, Mark and I, or even just one of us, will be able to be an observer and give our own personal, upfront, and in-person testimony to a similar event.
Yeah, and I'm sure that, as always, without question, either both or one of us will give our equitable, honest, impartial, open-minded account of just who is this man they call Yeshua.
Undoubtedly. Looking forward to it. I hope you're journaling these events, Mark. Someday, someone will want to read these accounts. Someone like you needs to document his statements and hold them for posterity. Like I said last week, maybe make a book about them someday. Right, Mark?
Let's see. Maybe a book called Mark. Hmm.
Yep, time will tell.
All right. Yeah, and as we just can't end our report without asking the question. So what do you say, Sandi? Is the jury still out?
I'm not sure the jury has all the facts yet, Mark, but we have started deliberating.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us for another edition of Newscasting Ancient Times.
Have a blessed day.
So eerie music. Let me get this thing over here. I keep having to look to the side because I've got it up on another monitor. So, hi, Sandi. Another one down. Another one down. That was
another episode.
Another episode down. That was just a really short story, so I had to build as much around it as I possibly could and try to make that work. I thought afterwards, after I was already finished, we should have spent more time on the Zarat issue, but I didn't. Maybe it'll come up later. We'll spend a little more time on it.
It's good. It was good.
It's good. Yeah, we're going to have to, one of us are going to have to step out of the studio someday and go check him out and give our report on that. Somewhere in here, we're going to have to start switching our views.
Well, I didn't know if it'd be sort of like Superbook, if that cartoon that from CBN that kids watch. It's really pretty good educationally. At least it's a cartoon that talks about Bible stories.
Okay.
It's not Torah perspective, but it does tell all the Tanakh. It talks about the stories and gets something in the kids, but they have this robot that comes in and swoops in and takes them back to the place in time, and they get to experience it. So,
oh, well, that's good.
and then they apply whatever they saw and witnessed Yeshua doing to, or actually anything from the any of the stuff, to their own lives and the situation they're having. Anyway, that's that cartoon, and yeah.
Huh, that's interesting. You have a robot that takes them back. At least they're using AI, using artificial intelligence to do things kids are now relating to more and more.
Well, actually, there's two versions. The oldest version that was around when Jonathan was young now looks sort of hokey because it used a robot too, but the current version is, I'm not so sure that robot's super intelligent, but it does take them into the words.
I love it. That's good. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I came across a study that is interesting. Are you the same person you were when you were 14?
Yeah. Yep. Well, okay. So pretty soon I just ordered this t-shirt that says, if you're not grown up by 65, then you don't have to. Yeah. Or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it says, but so it kind of applies to that, I guess. If you're as grown up as you're going to be at 14, then embrace it and live that way for the rest of your life. I guess that's what I've done. Is at 14, I said, wow, I know everything there is to know about the world. I'm there. So I've just embrace that, and that's my mental ability is I'm 14 all the time.
Well,
No, it's not, but it is kind of my personality sometimes.
well, I remember at 14, I was very focused on the Lord, on Jesus at the time. I was goal oriented. I was a nerd at school. I wanted to be valedictorian in my class. I wanted to be the best at everything I did. I wanted to go to Oral Roberts University, and um, of course, I wanted to be healed, manifestation of being healed.
Right.
And that was my I mean, at 14, that was my focus. I had a job, so I wanted to save money so I could have things in a home at 14. And so I'm trying to think of how I've changed because I was very goal oriented, but I still am.
Uh-huh. You are.
And um,
Oh, you haven't changed since you were 14 either, Sandy.
I I
Same
think
here.
I've changed in that I can give myself a break a little bit more. Back then. Oh, and I had no self-esteem. I,
Yeah.
I had, because I'd been the sick kid. I I was I you didn't I didn't see myself as I, secularly, like pretty and all these other things. I just it was really low because I was the sick kid.
Uh-huh.
And
Right.
I always felt, because I was always in the hospital, I always felt like I was a hardship on my family. And
Wow.
so,
That's a burden at
oh, it
14.
was. It was. I mean, I always felt like I cost too much money, so I wanted mom and dad to be proud. So I did whatever I possibly could do.
Wow.
But so that part of me has changed. But this study actually says you are a completely different person at 14 and 77. The longest personality study of all time, published in Psychology and Aging, found that over the course of a lifetime, just as your physical appearance changes and your cells are constantly replaced, your personality is also transformed beyond recognition. The study began with data from 1950 survey of 1,208 14-year-olds in Scotland. More than 6 decades later, researchers tracked down 635 of them, and 174 of the 77-year-olds agreed
Really?
to retest, and
Wow.
researchers concluded there was no significant stability of any of the 6 characteristics over the 63-year interval. So, according to the study, you're a completely different person between those ages. But you want to know, one of the things that I know is different for me is that my faith has always been strong. So that has remained constant. And I think that can hold you a little bit more steady.
Sure.
But
Sure.
I'm not as I'm not near as, I don't think I'm near as driven as no, that's not true. I'm just, I am different, but I'm the same. I know that sounds weird. It's contradictory.
No, it's not. It's not. It's there are certain characteristics that can be the same, and a lot of characteristics that really should change, I guess, is the way you could look at it. I mean, why 14? That's my first question, is why do it at 14? And I think that it is a very maturing part of a person's life. It kind of depends on what your family is providing for you. Do you need to be more mature? Do you need to? With me, I didn't. At 14, I was a very stable family. My whole family was very stable the whole time I was alive, all through my childhood. I didn't have to strive for anything, even for grades or school or anything. I didn't strive for it. I just did what I knew to do. I didn't know anything different, but just, do schoolwork and be a part of school, and you and I lived opposite lives when it comes to this kind of thing. I didn't have to try to impress my parents or anything. I had the worst older brother that anybody could possibly have, but anyway, just I think it's different per family. I really is. I think it's different per 14-year-old that has to grow up in different situations.
I don't think that my family necessarily put a lot of the pressure on me. I put the pressure on myself.
Yeah,
And
right.
now, I'm
Right.
very strong. I was strong. I had a strong will to live back then, because if I wouldn't, I would have been dead. But now I'm strong in what my idea is, and when I have an idea, or when I'm doing something, I'm confident. I'm confident. I didn't have a lot of confidence back then. My home environment was very stable and very good. It was just, I had to grow up due to, first off, I was the firstborn, and you have that usually you carry more
I
responsibility.
was the youngest. So
And then with everything else, when you're struggling every day to survive, then yeah, I in 8th grade I saw somebody become valedictorian, and I didn't know that was a thing. And I made up my mind at 8th grade graduation that I would be valedictorian of my senior class. And so I put that pressure on me, because that's what I
sure,
wanted. I
sure.
wanted to be first chair. I wanted to be I always wanted to be the best at whatever I was doing. So that
I
was
was I was too shy to do all that. I got great grades and did really good. There was only a couple of subjects that I didn't want to apply myself into, so I didn't, and didn't do as well. But I mean, I did great and had the opportunity to do more, whether it's valedictorian or up there with that class of people. But I didn't want to be up there with that. I was too shy to even be highlighted in any way.
But
And
you enjoyed you enjoyed then your childhood. I would never go back, because I don't remember before I got sick. I remember having fun with my brother and sister, but after that
sure.
period of time, I don't remember ever enjoying anything.
Yeah, I understand.
It was work. Life was
Yeah,
work,
right.
and that's all there was. So I didn't really, after the age of 11, I really didn't have like fun ever. So
See, is this it all has to do with your circumstances and the world around you and what you're growing up in. I did my first radio show when I was 14 years old,
wow,
and I
that's
was
impressive.
really shy. I mean, I didn't at school. I have my close, like, four friends that we all did everything together, and all of us were kind of nerdish to that type of thing. But I mean, I turned 14 in September, and when the not the fall but the spring, or the early part of school year was done, that's when I went on the radio. So in my later part of 14, I went on the radio until I graduated high school at 17.
Wow.
And I was a year ahead. I Anyway, I didn't skip a grade, but I skipped part of a grade
Wow.
because they put me ahead. So I graduated when I was 17, and I moved. So we stopped the broadcast. But anyway, I mean, as a shy kid, people knew who I was because I was on the radio and we did high school stuff. You know,
See, that is a big change, because you're not shy. You're not shy now.
well, I'm not shy now. I am kind of in some situations, depends on what situations. But I'm the same. I think I'm the same person I was at. My personality, my character is the same as I was when I was 14. I don't see it any differently. It's I don't. I mean, other people can, I'm sure, but because
I
I can remember 14
I
very vividly. I
me too.
remember it, so, but I think some people don't. And then most of my childhood, I don't remember at all. I don't remember hardly any of it when it comes to the radio stuff and things that I did, around that and in school and stuff. I kind of remember those things, but not
I
other.
remember 14 because that's the year they gave me a few days to live, and they sent me to the National Jewish Hospital, and I was there for I right after I turned 14, I was at the National Jewish Hospital for 6 months, and my lung when I got there, my lung functions was 7%. That's why I remember 14 is I can remember everything in 14.
Yeah.
So using 14 as a marker actually
Yeah.
makes sense for both of us because
Yeah.
we both had
Sure.
things that marked something in our lives
Sure.
that caused us to remember that year. So maybe that was a smart age.
I think 14 is a transition age, the year of 14, because you're such a kid, and of course 13 is supposed to be when you become an adult, or become a man, become a woman, whatever, and all that kind of stuff. But I think really between 12 and 14 is a transition, and then 14 you kind of find who you are. I don't know, I'm sure everybody's different. Some kids are forced to grow up a lot younger than that because of their
That's true. It's
family
true.
and because of family circumstances. They have to go out, and a lot of kids these days, it has been forever, a lot of kids have to grow up real quick and even go out and make money for the family. So, you and I were, I'm not going to use the word privileged, but we did come from good homes that
Yes.
allowed for us to grow up, somewhat.
Stable. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That was good.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with you. That's good. That's a good question to ask.
I thought it was when I came across it. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
that's interesting.
yeah. I I I have a question for you.
What's that?
Are you a conspiracy theorist?
I'm a fact theorist.
I don't know why this past week it popped into my head. We were watching something, and my wife is tenfold the conspiracy theorist that I am, and she'll kind of halfway agree and halfway disagree with that. I think a conspiracy theorist is somebody that immediately, no matter what they hear, it's the question. It questions whether or not that's true or not. And I think that's what a conspiracy
But I
theory.
think in this day and this hour, if it's coming from the media, we probably
Yeah,
should question it. So
but it doesn't make any difference. You're talking the media. You're talking anywhere from extreme right to extreme left and everything in between. And to me, it's literally question everything, no matter what it is, and you put it in a category of, okay, I'll deal with that there and that type of thing. I think that's what a conspiracy to me when I think of conspiracy theorists, and my wife's that way. I think she'd agree with the fact that she questions everything. I'm too easy to not
see,
question everything.
I that is one area I have changed because I married John Craig. When I was 14, I thought people always told the truth
Uh-huh,
and things were honest and good
uh-huh,
and the world was bright and great out there. There's a future. And now I, I
uh-huh,
don't I I know all people are good.
uh-huh.
That is one thing that I have changed. And I
Yeah,
think part of the biggest influence is my husband.
yeah.
So
That's true. It's true, and I'm sure you guys talk a lot of the things out on those things. Well, some of them
I
you
don't see
probably.
him. I don't see him.
Yeah, I understand. I get it. I get it.
So,
Yeah. I don't know. There was a time when, I probably just accepted the majority, and thought that those that had minority opinions, in other words, they weren't really all that respected, then I just blew them off and went with the most normal. As I've how do I put it?
mature.
In that area, maybe. I've listened. Let's put it this, as I've listened to both my wife and John Craig and a few others. It's like I've told John several times. This is, I don't ever watch the news. I wait for you to come on so I can hear what you have to
I'm
say.
that. I don't watch the news. I wait for him to tell me. When I told him, because he's been so busy. Like he got in at like 6 o'clock this morning from work from
Yeah,
yesterday. So
God.
he told me he had to sleep for a couple hours before he went back. And I told him on Sunday, I said, I haven't heard from any news in a few weeks. And it's like, well, we can't do it now. We got to work. So,
I'm gonna confess something that's gonna make your eyebrows pop to the ceiling.
okay.
I do watch there's a new one news source that I watch. GMA. You know what GMA is?
Good morning, America.
That's right. And I go on, it's on, you can get it on Hulu, and you can go on to the news and you can see the day before. In other words, I can't watch this morning unless I watch it live. So I always have to watch the day before. So I'm a day behind on that. But that's where I get my news, is I'll watch what they have to say about it. And it's fluff. It is. It's fluff. Whether or not it's right or wrong or biased or however it is, it's still fluff. And but I like some of the fluff pieces. I like to know. They do a lot of movie interviews and stuff.
Well, it's a morning program.
Yeah, it's a morning program. It always, I need to look it up, but the first words out of their mouth as soon as they come on air is "Good morning" to our viewers in the West, and then they go on with their story. They are on Times Square, so they are in New York City, so they're here on the East Coast. But the first words out of their mouth, every show, go watch it. It's "Good morning" to our viewers in the West.
I used to watch that years ago, and I don't remember "To the West" part.
Yep, they do every single show, because I see. I don't watch every show, but most mornings, you get up, and by the time I'm getting my smoothie for breakfast, I'll go sit down in there and turn that on. Of course, my favorite feature in the world, there is no better feature than the fast forward button. The 30 seconds or 10 seconds. That's the best feature. Whoever created that has got a free ticket into heaven. That's all I can. No, I don't believe that. But anyway, so watching shows like that, you can. Hey, here's another question for you. Did you watch any of the coronation?
No.
What?
We don't have like regular channels, and I don't get on Hulu or something to watch the news or anything. So I literally, unless John tells me what's going on, I don't know. We actually did a show, John, on our walking show this week was about that. So I learned a whole bunch. Yeah, I learned a whole bunch of stuff on that this week. So
Donna wanted to. Matter of fact, we've gone back to look at anything he might have said on like Monday mornings news deal, and he didn't mention anything. I already knew all the stuff he was talking about there, and she wanted to see what he had to say on the coronation. So we can watch this past week's walking, and you guys talk about that.
I did this. That's what I did. I think I said 4 words, maybe 10.
Aw, that's not walking.
Yeah. Usually I say all the words, and John says almost none, so it's fine. But he's the one that's up to date on stuff. He's the one that studies
Yeah, I
that
get
kind.
it.
And he studies the word too, but he for walking usually not always, but the teaching of the word is from me. So he
Sure.
at our congregation, everybody was asking about that, and so he brought it forward. He didn't feel prepared enough on Monday to do it,
I see.
so he did it on Tuesday.
I get it. Well, you can go on Hulu and click news, and you can see the whole coronation. It's there. I mean, it's like 2-3 hour segments of what, and you literally can watch the entire thing, and it's hosted by Good Morning America hosts, and they come in and you watch it and they comment on it as it goes on.
Well,
it was interesting.
Hearing that Charles basically declared himself king of the world and the head of all religion. Huh.
Well, but yet he, if you want to, doesn't make any difference. You don't have to be British or UK or UK-ish or whatever they're called. You can pledge your allegiance to King Chuck anytime you want. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Did I say King Chuck?
It's best, I think, to say KC3.
KC3? King 3. Oh, KC3. Okay. Well, I see. My first thought is Kansas City because I grew up in Southeast Kansas, and it was KC everything. So we decided, just stepping away rabbit trail from coronation here, is do you remember the old Steve Martin parody he did called King Tut?
Yes.
Where he did the thing. And so so Donna and I, we want, and you may get this as a code.
Yes, do it.
I want to do a parody on that parody and call it King Chuck, King Chuck. I'll write up a script on that, and we'll put together.
That'd be so much fun.
We're going to need background singers and all kinds of different things, but I'll put together something.
Well, speaking of that, people need to come. People need to sign up and come so they can be part.
Well, right there, if you're watching on the website, just go down just a little bit and you'll see a banner for Sukkot, and you click on that and you can register and come.
You should make a promo for me.
I will.
It's not for me because it's the Lamb Network and Life.
I know. I need. How about you and I get together sometime and we'll do a voiceover?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, we'll do that. Anyway, coronation. It was really kind of cool to see all of it happen and what they did. They had gospel singers in there. They had that coronation was not traditional.
On purpose.
It was half traditional and not traditional, but because of Chuck, he changed it all up. It got the Catholic crap, Catholic stuff on there, but they also had a lot of extra stuff, like these gospel singers were just amazing, and a lot of other stuff.
Well, I do know that's one thing Queen Elizabeth did do, is she held very tightly as the head of the church to
Uh-huh.
the Christian standard.
Uh-huh.
And Charles or KC3 said specifically that he wants all religions basically
Uh-huh.
together.
Together as one taller. Hey, that's what you call a one world government there, Sandy Lou.
Oh, and then he did say too, he wanted to have a world tax paid to them or him, uh, so that so we should all be taxed by him to live, and so he could have a world,
Well,
whatever army and stuff like that. So
hey, me, hey,
we've all heard Monty before.
I know, it pops up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean,
Who
right
knows?
now he's reading Monty's reading or has been reading his script way before it ever was fulfilled. So
Uh-huh,
not that that's it. I
uh-huh,
don't know, but
uh-huh. Have you heard Monty's latest deal on him? Usually he does it on Fridays though, and the coronation was Saturday.
yeah, he did. I, I think he did say some things on it last week, but I haven't heard this week. So
Yeah. Well, if he did it Friday, he did it before the coronation. So it would be this Friday tomorrow that you'd have to watch.
but I do have John, so that always helps.
Well, once again, you have that wonderful fast forward button. You can click it through. So seriously, if you'll go to Hulu, click on news up at the top, scroll down just a little bit, you'll see 2 videos on the coronation. And if you watch the first one first, you can kind of Michael Strahan. Do you know who he is?
Mhm.
He is one of our favorites. We just love him so much, and he hosted the whole thing
Oh,
and
he
talked to.
hosted it. Wow.
He hosted it. That's what I'm saying.
Football
You know,
player to host of
yeah.
um,
Oh my gosh, he is. If you could hear his story, he's got a major story.
well, I
And
remember the last time I ever saw GMA, he was on there. He had
uh-huh,
become
uh-huh,
a permanent guy.
yeah,
But and I do like his personality. He seems very
he's
sweet.
great. He is great. We love him.
So
Yep. So anyway, if you want to check it out, anybody that hasn't seen it, you don't know where to watch it. That's how you can get to it. I don't know how else to tell you. It's probably on Hulu or on YouTube. That's a 4-letter word to me, by the way. And so anyway, this has been fun. I'll go back and listen to Walking this past Tuesday. It's on the on-demand section of Lamb. We have beefed up our on-demand section, and every show has its own page now, and you can literally go in and watch the last episode, not every episode. Anyway, so Sandy, you ready to switch over?
sure.
Sure. Let's go. We'll be right back after this. Sandy will be right back after this. And then I'll be right back after this.
We'll be dancing in the streets, dancing at his feet, dancing in the streets of gold. We'll be dancing in the streets, dancing at his feet.
But one thing I do, forgetting what lies behind and reaching forward to what lies ahead. Philippians 3:13. Forgetting what is behind, reaching forward. That's what we're going to talk about today. Sometimes not as easily done as spoken, but let's talk about it. So, when we look at these two things, forgetting what lies behind and reaching forward, it's really telling us how to live. One concern that I have or have witnessed and have experienced with people is that the past actually can paralyze people. It literally can paralyze people or keep them in this moment or even lock them down in a place where they seem to interpret everything that happens in their life from this one event of their past. So it's almost like a prison. And yet that's not what we're supposed to be, nor what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to reach forward, but that's impossible when you're holding on so tightly to something that's already happened. Maybe there's unhappy memories, or the loss of a loved one, or financial setback, or broken relationship, or mistake that you've made, intentional and unintentional, and it eats you up. It sits there and it plays in your mind. You think you haven't done it, and 6 months, a year later, that thing starts playing again. And it's literally the enemy trying to hold you back from what you're supposed to capture you, to imprison you, so to speak. And that's not good. We've all done things, seen things, been a part of things, witnessed things that have been hurtful, that have been traumatic, that have been mistakes, all of the above. Let's look at Shaul. Let's look at Paul for just an example. Did he have a past that could have locked him and kept him and prevented him from doing anything else? Yes. Even he himself called himself a blasphemer, persecutor, injurious. Remember, he played a big part in stoning Stephen. He played a big part. Witnesses laid down their clothes at the young man's feet, whose name was Saul, because he stoned him. He was part of that. So maybe even murder. You could list that. If any of those things could cause someone to be locked in this area where their mind keeps going back to that point, and it could cripple them from being accomplishing what Yah wants them to do in their life. But Paul didn't let it happen. He said, forgetting, but one thing I do, forgetting what lies behind and reaching forward to what lies ahead. Is that an example we need to follow? Absolutely. It's in the word, right? Absolutely. He says himself that does not regard himself as having laid hold of it yet. It's a work in progress. You and I are a work in progress. But do we hold on to things? Do we let those mistakes, or those events, or those traumatic moments of our lives hold us in a place where we can't seem to get out of? Maybe. I'm going to talk about Brother Lawrence. If you don't know who Brother Lawrence is, Brother Lawrence was originally named Nicholas Herman, and he lived in the 1600s. And he grew up poor, became a soldier, had an experience from Yah, and he began to have a relationship and basically lived in a monastery from that point on. So that's who this guy is. And you may say, why am I talking about this guy? Because he has spending time with God, the way he understood God. Really, he had some experiences and lived a life that there are some things we could take note of. He practiced the continual presence of God because he immediately, the moment something happened in his life, he confessed it, or whether it was an action, whether it was an attitude that interfered in anything that interfered with his relationship with God, or that didn't seem right according to the word, he immediately confessed it, and then he completely forgot about it. He didn't hold on to it. He didn't let himself remember it again. That confession was always followed by release. He didn't let it take hold of him. He refused to allow his past disobedience, those things that he had done in the past, to alter his character for his present obedience. That's important, because if we're locked in the past, sometimes that's going to lead to disobedience in the present. So we're locked in a pattern, this holding pattern. But we are to forget what's behind. Once confessed, sin once confessed, for him it was gone. He could return to fulfill the purposes God called him for, return to the full enjoyment of serving God at his side. But today, what do we do when we make mistakes? When something happens, we have this habit of holding on to it. We try to work it out a different kind of way. We try to handle it, negotiate it, cajole it, or correct our sins when we don't have the ability to do that. We interact with disobedience. We interact as though somehow we're going to find a way to control ourselves. We're going to conquer that thing. We don't confess it and go on, forget about it, never repeating it. We work it out. We look for the secret of sin eradication. And that's silly, because That's not something we can accomplish. We can't we can't manage sin. That's irrational. Sin is sin. We need to remove it from our lives. And there's only one way to deal with that, and that's through confession and repentance. And then what happens? We forget what lies behind. If when we try to handle ourselves, all the sin things that are in our life, all these traumatic events, we're acting as though there's a reasonable way to deal with it. And there's not. Anything that has the purpose of bringing forth destruction, death, and despair is not reasonable. That's the enemy. What does he come to do? Steal, kill, and destroy. We need to treat sin for what it is. It's sin. It's insanity. It's not an option. Walk away and never let it bother you. Let it go. Let it go. If you've been forgiven, and that means you don't return to that place and eat your vomit, you can't do that. You've got to let it go and come back into the right thinking, come back into your right mind. The word that Paul uses here for the Greek is epilonthonium. Anyway, it's a deliberate act. Say that 10 times fast. And it's a matter of will. You don't dwell on the past. That means this is a choice. It's something you have to actually do. You can't just let it happen. You can't just let it, it's going to happen one of these days, one of these seconds, it's just going to leave. No, it's a matter of will. Stop dwelling on your past. Don't, when it starts coming your way, you take your thought captive and you push it aside. You tell the enemy what he can do with that thought. You get rid of those thoughts. You forget that past guilt, that past shame. And then you press on to the goal of Yeshua. You press on to the rest that you find, that path of righteousness. You can spend a lot of money on a shrink, psychiatrist, somebody to counsel you, and they're going to dig deep into the things that happened in your past of why this happened to you to bring you to this place where you're in this ditch. But in reality, the real issue is how do you get out of the ditch, not why you got there. Yeah, you can look at the root and all of that, but you need to get out of that place. You need to get out of that entrapment, that cage. And how does that happen? Confession. It happens through repentance and surrender. Say, I can't do this, y'all, but you can. Put your old self aside. You're a brand new creation. Strip yourself of all those management ideas. I'm managing sin. That's not going to happen. Let go of the dead stuff. It's like cutting off an old branch. When you prune a tree, it brings forth life. If you prune it correctly, you cut strategically. But instead, we don't want to be pruned, and we carry all the dead weight with us. And so we have branches that bear no fruit and bear no life, but we hold on to them because we think they're important. We think they're part of our support structure, and they're not. They need to be pruned. No, though pruning hurts, we have to be pruned at different times of our life. In John 15:2, it says, any branch in me that does not bear fruit, it says that he cuts it off. And it needs to be done because death is death. Those dead branches need to be removed because those are the very things that are holding us back, holding us captive, are that dead weight. It's like carrying a backpack full of rocks and wanting to make sure you go somewhere, and you can't go far because you've got dead weight on you. It's good to stop and evaluate your life and say, is there something that's held me captive? If it's not sin in my life, things that I've done, is there something else that's holding me there that I'm dragging around? Something in the past, something traumatic, relationship, a wound? What is it? A negative attitude, criticism, anger, rage? What are those things that are holding you back, that have held you captive? It's nice to say, hey, God's getting rid of that branch, but sometimes we hold on so tightly and say, you're not cutting this off. You are not doing it. And we won't let him move. We like it to be stuck. We like to be in this holding pattern where we actually go nowhere because we're too afraid to give up. We're too afraid to give up the familiar because we can't see and understand what he's doing. It would be nice if we could, but Yah just says, trust me, I'm going to cut that thing off. And we need to say, do it, because you're miserable dragging around the dead weight, dragging around that sin, dragging around those moments where you're caught up in the past. The best thing you can do is let Yahweh prune you, because guess your roots are going to go deeper and your fruit's going to be sweeter. And that's important. When we trust Yah to take care of it, if it's sin, if we confess, repent, and go forward, That's what he wants. He wants to use us and keep us from being bound and imprisoned in thoughts, emotions, times, events, because our relationship with Yah is much more than attending a congregation as a duty. It's a relationship. It's supposed to be intimacy, and we've got to let go of the past. We can't drag it around anymore. And then what else are we supposed to do when we let go? We're supposed to reach forward. Reach forward. I want you to picture a football player. Specifically, we just talked about a football player, but when we look at this word in the Greek, epikateno, what it really is saying is you're reaching forward, you're stretching as far as you can forward. So picture a football player, and maybe it's the QB, maybe it's somebody else, that's the running back that's carrying the ball over the goal line. What they're going to do is stretch as far as they can with that ball so that they cross the goal. They cross that line so that they score. But they are going to use everything that they have to stretch forward, reaching forward. That's this idea, to extend, to really stretch towards something, reaching towards the goal. So is that what we do? Or do we sort of meander our way there and say, we may get there, we may not? Where's our focus? Our focus is where Yah intends us to be. Paul said that he deliberately made a choice to leave the things of his past where? In the past. He decides to forget them. Why? Because he knows that he has to press ahead. You and I have to press ahead. We have to reach towards the goal. Shaul refused to be delayed or distracted by anything of his past, because all of the stuff we listed and more could have held him captive. But he said, no, that's my past. I'm moving forward because I want to be usable. I want God to use me today in this hour. He refused to be delayed or distracted by anything else. His concentration was on the prize ahead. His concentration was on that rest. His concentration was on Yeshua. That verse gives us this correct understanding about our present circumstances, because our past is done. It's done. The strength or the power that it has should be spent, but we keep giving it power. It's had a purpose. Maybe God is here because those things that have happened to us do make us who we become and who we are. But if we're going to cross the goal line, we will have to leave the past and stretch towards the future. Yeah, this is sort of a Greek idea of linear events. But I want us to get this picture that these are the things we have to do so that we can be used by God, so that we are a vessel that can accomplish the things he's called us to. Can we truly be the light we're supposed to be if we're caught up in the past? The prize of the high calling of God is 3:14 in Philippians. Is that our goal? Is that our high calling in life? It doesn't matter how far you've come. It only matters that we have him in sight and what he's called us to do, to fulfill his purposes, letting go of the past so that we can be used, letting go of those things that hold us captive, and making a specific effort so that not only are we choosing to forgive. If it's it's an act that we continually do, and we stretch forward with everything that we have so that we can go where he's called us to go. Forgetting our past, reaching forward. Mark.
Oh, wonderful. What a wonderful idea. It's not as easy as it sounds like.
No.
Sandy's just preaching along, teaching along and everything, and it's like I'm going, that's not easy at all. But it is a mature, balanced, stable way. Words we used in the first part of our show. being able to move forward is definitely a balanced way to be. And we all know people, every one of you and I and everybody watching, we all know people who hang on to the past. And if we think about it, those people for are good people, but they can sure make it known that they're living in the past. I'm just specifically thinking of a couple people right now, but I know a lot of people in the past. I don't. We even talked about this earlier when I was 14 years old. It was like I didn't have any reason to have things hold me back. I just went ahead and did whatever I was supposed to do, and I did it, and I have kind of lived my life this way. Holding grudges, though, will certainly not move on. A lot of the times you're doing exactly that. You're holding grudges. You can have a grudge against somebody or not like somebody or something, but when you hold that grudge, now you're not letting that go and letting the past or whatever caused your grudge. Okay, so now my notes as you were going along there. It's unreal. I'm going to try to be as generic as possible. I know these people are not watching, but I want to use them as examples. I know somebody that lost their spouse, and it was literally for a long period of time, every conversation that we got into that person's spouse, their name came up in the conversation. Every time. It made no difference. They always got that dead spouse's name into the conversation, one way or the other. And it got hard on me because I felt bad for this person that they couldn't let that go. I mean, they were, they lived a normal life and everything was fine, but it seemed so odd to me that they would enter that person. And another person that lost a spouse 5 years ago, and they remember the anniversary of that spouse dying, and they're sad and they're kind of depressed for a little while around when it comes up on that anniversary. I I can see remembering it, and it being a day, but to actually become sad and depressed at that time it's like let it go. Just let it go, especially when others can't do anything around you because you're sad and depressed over something that. Anyway, you get my point on that. Interesting on remembering and not remembering. The anytime anymore, and every one of us have known somebody that's gone through dementia or Alzheimer's or whatever like that. I've wondered. I thought deeply because my mother passed. She had dementia. I've known loads of people that have had dementia and died because of it. And I have meditated on this. I've talked to the Lord about this, and it's like these people. It can be positive and negative. They no longer have to be concerned about past things that they held on to, you know. That's good, but it's negative because now they have no idea what's going on around them. And I've I've thought about that. That's a whole nother subject we could talk about sometime. I think would be good. And then you have this. You have deathbed repentance. I mean, it's like you're not going to let go your life until it's time you have to let go. I think it really kind of plays into this. And there are people that they're waiting for that 11th hour, and they're not going to let go all the things that drive them through their life. And it's just amazing to me to even be in that frame of mind, to even think that I can see being, what is it when you put things off? What's the word for that?
Procrastinate.
Yeah, procrastinate. I can see procrastinating, but if you believe in the Lord, you believe in salvation, you believe in the kingdom to come, you believe in living a life, that is pleasing to the Lord. Why in the world would you put it off? Why would you procrastinate that? Well, some people end up here, and hopefully you don't just die like that. Then where were you? It's like but people like that hold on to those. And confession and release. That's the part to me that is like, that's the hardest thing in the world. You can confess all you want to. It's like go. Somebody did you wrong, and you say, "Oh, I forgive you. I'm not going to forget it, but I forgive you." And I mean, I hear that all the time. People forgive, but they don't. I'm not going to forget it. Okay, there's a balance in there that.
My question is, then did you actually forgive?
Yeah, it's like, what is your definition of forgiveness for this instance? Because I think it's different every instance. But when you say something like that, I forgive you, but I'm not going to forget it. Give me your definition of forgiveness then. Because
And then be held by the same accountability by God. You want him to do the same.
Exactly. That's a good one. All right, sin eradication. Okay, well, I've never heard those two words put together before, but I don't know where to go with sin eradication.
Well, it's this idea. A lot of times we sin and we ask forgiveness, but then we go back and do it again.
Okay.
You've got to purpose in your heart that you're going to eradicate that thing from your life. You're going to stop whatever that thing is.
Take measure.
Cycle, whatever it is. You can't keep going back to your vomit. It's just like if
go ahead.
You haven't actually really meant that when you've asked forgiveness, you actually didn't really mean it when you repented, if you keep going back and doing it over and over and over.
If you did mean it, then you would take measures to make sure that didn't happen again.
Exactly.
As much as you possibly could.
Now, there may be a slip here or there, but it's not
right.
This constantly going back.
That's right. I get it. So yeah, that was a little rough. Then you did mention going back to the vomit, and my analogy, my thought process on that is I don't see how you couldn't just physically experience that. We've all vomited. We know, even thank God for toilets. which if you gotta vomit, if you can get it in that toilet and you can flush it, it's gone. But I think everyone, I know it's a rough subject, but you brought it up. If you brought it up, then fine, it's
True.
got to be discussed. So my thought is how many of us have actually vomited somewhere other than the toilet where we had to clean it up or somebody else had to clean it up. Is that the most vile thought that your brain can come up with? Because that's rough, Sandi. And I'm going to get real here. The smell of it, the looking at it, everything almost makes you, and sometimes does make you want to vomit again. Is that not true?
It's true.
Okay, so go there. If you've sinned, and which is you're using the expression of when you sin, it's like vomiting. Okay, then when you sin and you decide that you don't want to do it, now you got to clean it up. You got to clean it up. You got to look at it. That's what I'm thinking of. You got to look at that sin. You got to smell that sin.
I think you're rolling around in that sin.
That sin is horrible. It's vile. What? Go ahead.
I think when you choose to go back to that vomit, that sin thing, you're rolling around in the vomit.
Gosh, I was I know I was being very vivid on this, but my gosh.
Have you ever seen, you wouldn't have seen these movies. Think of Pitch Perfect. Have you ever seen any of those movies?
Yeah, sure.
Remember when the whistle thing, the girl always, and the one girl went and laid in it, and returning to the vomit. So not only are you smelling it, seeing it, you're literally laying and rolling in it because it's sin and it's disgusting. It's insanity.
You can only hear it here on the Messianic Lamb Network. But it's true. I mean, I don't think for the most part we want to even think of sin like that. In other words, sin, okay, we did something wrong. We know we did it. And so now we want to put it in the past. But it doesn't ever just get put in the past. To me, if it's worthy of not doing again, then you need to address it. You need to clean it up. And you need to take measures to not do it again. Go get a ginger ale. Go get that's what you do when you vomit is you get a ginger ale, or you get something, that's going to rinse out all that in your mouth and esophagus and everything, so that it's there. It's a way. You get what I'm saying? It's like, I don't think we take enough measures on sin to eradicate them.
Well, but that's the whole point. We've been talking about we've got to forget what is behind. In order to forget that, we've got to stop doing it.
That's the deal, is the process of stop doing it. For the most part, I think most of us, when we sin, okay, we recognize that sin. I'm sorry. I please forgive me. I sinned. And then we go on with our lives. When the trigger point, and I think that's a real key word that's rarely brought up, is there are triggers that cause us to sin. And if there are, if you know your sin and you know this is something that you're susceptible to, you know that there is something that is your weakness, okay, you have got to take steps to not go into that. It's the same thing as addiction. I mean, sin can be an addiction because it can be things that you can't help yourself on. You want to go to that area. You want, and so and I know this is, to me, this is not a rabbi trail. To me, this is talking about trying to get rid of those things in the past so that we can move forward. The only way you can do that is to confront that sin and take measures to get rid of it, to get it in the past, and you can move forward.
To truly repent.
To
Truly repent.
to truly move forward. I think we in our heads, we move forward without taking the measures to make sure we don't do it again. I think that's why it's the past is still in the present. It's not in the past. The actual happening may have happened in the past, but it's still in your presence until you do something to, like you say, eradicate it. I like that word. I had not heard that. I know what it is, but I hadn't put the two together. And so I hope this is helping somebody. I've thought about this many times, but it's what we have to do. It's amazing. Returning to your vomit, clean it up. I'm pulling an Eddie here. Anyway.
Blazing Torch said, "Get so close to God, your sin is repulsive to you," and I agree with that. And then sin is saying something is more important to us than the Holy One. We would rather worship a false God than trust the Most High. Things in the past belong to the ungenerated creature. We are new creations through Jesus Christ. Yes.
Good one. That's good. That's good. Where's that?
Blazing Torch in commentary.
Oh, I'm not watching. Okay, my last note that I have on what you talked about that came to mind was that, other people can remind us of our past and bring that up. We may have put that in the past. I mean, people that are close to us, like relatives, like family, that
because they know our stuff.
They know our stuff and can even, I mean, if you live in a family where maybe the family is not as in tune to living a godly lifestyle as you are, can be cruel sometimes, even though they may be joking about it or whatever, because your family and families joke about things. Sometimes they can be, my family can be, and I'm speaking from experience. I'm sure it's not everybody's family, but my family would just bring that crap up, would just redo it and make you so that you were less of a person than they were. And I mean, even nicknames, Sandy, can bring up old things that happened to a person that maybe they put in their past and they haven't thought about forever, but somebody from their past, family or friends or relatives or whatever, brings something up, and you have to be strong in that. You have to keep that in the past. Don't let that come back into your existence again. That's demonizing there. Those are demons. Those are things that you put away in your life, and somebody, other people can have the ability to bring that back into your life.
Because the enemy uses people, good people. It doesn't matter who you are. It can be a Hebrew roots believer. You can be Christian, family, friends. He uses people. There are moments that we allow ourselves to be used.
That's right.
By the enemy.
That's right. You bet.
And isn't that how and that's a way that tries to bring us right back into that entrapment, that prison-like state of being, when people like that do that. But that's when we have to make the choice to get away from that.
I'm with you. Very good. As always, good subject matter. I like it a lot. we always can just go forever on it. So it's good. I like it. All right. Well, we've got a few minutes left here. Uh, did I explain where this came from?
Explain it.
Well, uh, the guy I grew up with. I mean, we were in Cub Scouts together. We grew up, went all the way through school, graduated and he went his way, I went my way. We got back together every once in a while. And years ago, I found out that his son had started a headbanging band, and the name of it was Deathbed Repentance. That's the name of the band. And they did Christian headbanging music. And kind of like Skillet type music, and some of it was fun. It was good. Anyway, they came through our town where we lived in Oklahoma City and in Norman, and stayed with us because they had a concert to do in Oklahoma City, and the whole band stayed with us. And I got a T-shirt from it. But anyway, I always thought you would talk about a conversation starter. That's a conversation starter. Anyway, so we could do a whole show on Deathbed Repentance.
Deathbed Repentance.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about. Got just a few minutes. Let's. I want to bring this up and show everybody. Here we go. Let's talk about this. This is what's on the website. So if you go to the website and go down below the player, you're going to see this. And talk to us, Sandi. Tell us about Sukkot this year.
Well, the theme, of course, as you see, of the landnetwork.tv and Life of Worship Sukkot is victory. And you know what? We need to proclaim that. We've seen a lot of different things, but as we were praying it out, it really seemed like victory needs to be our theme. And we're really excited about it. Of course, I believe it is September 29th through October 6th. Yes, it's right there. And we're going to have great speakers. Of course, you're going to have Mr. Mark David Smith speaking, but not only that, there's going to be nightly worship, and he plays. Yeah. He is going to be playing the guitar, so you need to see that. In fact, he's got to start working on his fingers soon, because let me tell you, it hurts. It hurts if you've not been in practice. But we're going to have amazing worship and teaching every night. We're going to have skits and dramas and talent night and chili cook-offs and games and just a great time together. We're going to have practical classes, some sports classes. We're going to have dance and oils and maybe some prep classes, and who knows, as we gather in the people who are going to be teaching, we'll know more about what classes, and we'll have a specific schedule. And here's another thing: 0 through 17 is free.
Really?
If you're age 0 through 17, you go to Sukkot free. And so that's a big deal, because we know it takes a lot. We're going to have evening meals together, which have always been really good. In fact, officially, you're responsible for breakfast and lunch, but we've always had so much food that we've been able to eat. Those evening meals have been lunches for many things as well. So,
yeah.
And I know that we have had such a good time, especially when Mark when we all get together, Lamb Network as well as Life of Worship. It's just fun, and it's great. It's great fellowship. We'll have a big campfire every evening, and we'll have marketplace. So if you have something you would like God's given you the gifts and the talents, and you want to sell it, then we will have marketplace. And so you just need to make plans. We're supposed to be saving up already since the last Sukkot for this current Sukkot. And I know it costs money, but it does cost money. It costs money to travel. It costs money to put it on. And I would say this is like your good old hometown family coming together, and it's a great time to laugh, fellowship, get in the word, experience the presence of God. You may wonder what sets us apart. This is a spirit-filled Sukkot.
There you go.
This is a spirit-filled Sukkot. So it sets it apart from
That's
others. We want the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, to move through signs and wonders and miracles and prophecy
right.
and words of wisdom and knowledge and just being led by Yah. We will make our plans, but ultimately Yahweh is the one who is going to guide us and lead us throughout that whole time. We're going to have prayer walks and talks and
Cool.
morning prayers that were started way back by Mark and Adina way back in the long many decades ago at Sukkot. That's going to be going on. And Mark, how would you describe it? How would you describe the Sukkot we get to have together?
It's the fellowship of everybody, getting to meet people that you've never met before, getting to see people that you have seen before, and that's, to me, that's the fun of it, is the fellowship. Of course, we don't have any fellowship where we're at here, so it's like all year long it all builds up to where we can come to Sukkot and have all kinds of fellowship. That's huge part of it to me. And of course, the teachings are great. Everything about it's great. So if you don't mind, real quick, I want my tent to be set up right here. If we can make sure that our tent is set up right here. Donna won't like it, but I think that'd be kind of cool.
I could never know. I think you'll probably be in the same place you usually are. Folks, it is, I think you said that the Sukkot ones, it's like the old ones that you've had in the past, back in the old days.
Exactly.
And you loved it. But I mean, there was there's so much. But it's also, if you're expecting to have indoor meeting buildings, that's not going to happen. Everything's outdoors.
Outside, yeah.
Which
it is your grandma's Sukkot.
It's your grandma's Sukkot. I've always Sukkotted that way. I've never been in a place for Sukkot where we've done inside buildings and all that. We've always been completely outside for all of Sukkot. Sure. Now, we do have a meeting place that is covered and things like that. And we'll have a kitchen set up and some other things. So there are things out there that are very helpful, but you're outside, you're RVing, you're tenting.
Yep.
And you need to pray for rain, and we can have a mikvah too. So,
all right, we got to go. Thank you, Sandi. That was really good, and that was really what it's about. It really is getting there and being a part of it and enjoying everybody's presence and hopefully meeting Bob. Especially if you get to meet Bob. Then
I love Bob.
I know everybody loves Bob. Anyway, we got to go. Sandi, why don't you pray us out, and I'll make sure we have what we need. So,
all right, Father, we come before you and we thank you. Father, we need your help. We do want to forget those things that are behind and press forward, reach out, to stretch ourselves out to the goal, to you, to Yeshua, to rest. Father, help us in doing that. Help us recognize those areas that where we have been held captive by our own volition or by other things or by the enemy, which is truly what it is. And Father, let us walk in the fullness of your Ruach HaKodesh, of the Holy Spirit, and fulfill everything that you've called us to. Father, but we can't do it ourselves. Teach us, show us, and lead us and guide us. We give it to you in Yeshua's name. Amen.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hugie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.